Hey everybody, this is Scott, the host of the Sunday Morning Coffee Podcast. I would like to invite you to support the show through our Patreon page at patreon.com/smcpod. That's patreon.com/smcpod, where for only $4 per month, you can get early access to episodes and members-only content. Once again, that's patreon.com/smcpod, and I thank you for your support. Dave Albin, thank you for joining me today on the podcast. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you. It's quite an interesting topic. I can honestly say I've never spoken to anyone about this topic before, so thanks for talking with me today.
My pleasure, Scott. Thanks for having us.
First off, let's. The way I usually start these things out is I just have the guests talk a little bit about themselves, a little bit of background on yourself, and how you ended up in the place that you are at today.
Well, the smart aleck answer is I took that left-hand turn at Albuquerque, right?
The good old Bugs Bunny answer, yeah.
Old Bugs Bunny, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's been an unbelievable journey, and I would have never guessed it in a million years. I certainly didn't plan it. My life kind of started off in a really interesting way. A couple of months before I was born, my biological father, we don't know exactly what happened, Scott. He hit his head. He hurt his head. We think it happened maybe in Korea. And to save his life, they put a plate in his head. Well, the challenge with that is there's a lot of pain associated with those plates. And he complained to my mom all the time. And literally 2 months before I was born, he turned to her and he said, "I'm going to the grocery store." And we never saw or heard from him again. So when I was born to a single mother. She already had two boys, right? So now I'm the third one. And then she was living with her grandmother, or my grandmother, her mother, and we had another cousin living with us. So there were six of us living in a one-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, California, across the street from Hollywood High School. Mom worked up the street at the Roosevelt Hotel, well-known hotel in Hollywood. She worked her butt off. My mom came from that era. I believe it was the greatest generation that's ever walked the face of the planet, right? They went through the Great Depression. They all navigated their way through World War II. And of course, while all the men were over fighting the wars and the Germans and the Japanese, the women were home doing what? Everything.
Everything else, yeah.
Right? I mean, they built Jeeps and tanks and munitions. And my mom was known as Rosie the Riveter. She worked for McDonnell Douglas. She was driving rivets into the wings, making airplanes, right? So she wasn't afraid of hard work. She wasn't, back in those days, you didn't throw anything away, you fixed it. And so they were super, super resourceful, unlike any other generation that I think that I've ever read about, that's for sure. And so mom kicked butt. However, by the time I was 5 years old, she couldn't keep up. She couldn't feed six mouths. And so she went to her oldest sister. She went to Pat and Bob Albin, and would have been my aunt and uncle. And she said, I can't afford to feed David. Will you guys adopt him? And Bob and Pat said, absolutely. So they came and got me, took me from Hollywood, California to Long Beach, California. I lived in a nice house. Bob Albin was a highly decorated military army, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all that. We had a nice house. Again, he was an officer. We had nice things. We had food on the table. We did a lot of camping. And so when they took over at 5, all the way up until I was 11 years old, my life was perfect. Only child. So at Christmas time, all those presents, they're mine, right? So it was a beautiful thing. And then on the first day of summer, 1964, that all changed. They set me down that morning and basically said they needed to tell me something. And I thought they were going to tell me where we were going camping. We went camping all the time in the summer. We went everywhere. We went to Yosemite. We went to Big Bear. We went to Lake Havasu. We went to Lake Arrowhead. We went all over. And they set me down. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, we're going camping. And my mom puts her hand on my arm, and with tears in her eyes, she goes, "David, what we need to tell you is we're not your parents." Well, what? What do you mean you're not my parents? What does that mean? Of course you're my parents. That's like taking somebody outside and going, "See this guy? Well, it's not blue." Well, it looks pretty blue to me, right? So that changed everything. In fact, she went on to tell me, she said, your Aunt Dean, right? Yeah. She goes, "Well, she's actually your mom." And I'm like, I don't even like her. And it's not that I didn't like her. It was just that it was weird because every time I was around her, she wanted to be around me. She wanted to sit next to me, hold me, touch me, hug me, right? Not inappropriately, because I was her son.
Yeah, and you had no idea why.
I had no idea why. None, zero. And so that was a really interesting part of it. And then shortly after they told me that, they had both sworn off drinking when they adopted me at 5. They both started drinking, like right after they told me. Now, whether that it was because of that, I don't know. We had just come out of the Bay of Pigs. Kennedy had just been assassinated. John F. Kennedy had been assassinated November in 1963. My dad was working in the Pentagon. There was a lot going on. The Cubans, the missiles, the Russians. It was pretty intense. So the bottom line is they both started drinking. Well, my mom, so Pat, the one's raising me now, she was kind of a funny drunk, a happy drunk, if you will. She'd pass out at the kitchen table, that kind of stuff. Where Bob, he wasn't. He was violent. He was not a nice guy when he drank. Great guy when he was sober. Not such a nice guy when he was drinking.
Pretty common theme there.
What's that?
A pretty common theme there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anybody out there relate? So they went to the grocery store one day. Back in the 60s, you did that. You left your kids home. It was fine. You leave your doors unlocked. You call the neighbor across the street and say, "Hey, Joanne, Bob and I are going to the grocery store. David's at home. If he needs anything, can he come knock on the door?" Yeah, of course. Send him over now. I'm making the kids fried bologna sandwiches. You know what I mean? That's just kind of the way we all grew up. So when they left, I knew where the booze was. They were hiding it in plain sight. And I wanted to know what it was. It's like, why are these amazing people turning into these not so nice people, weird people when they're drinking? So I went over, took it out. Remember, I'm 11, bro, right? I went over, took a coffee cup, Scott, I poured it in there, filled it about half full. Boom! Down it went. And here's what I say about that. I never had a chance. Never. I was an alcoholic on the spot. I started thinking, acting out alcoholically. And it just progressed. It just got worse and worse and worse, right? So I'm 11. That's junior high school kind of stuff. And by the time I was a junior in high school, they brought me in right after, I started my junior year in high school. And they said, "Albin, you're out. You're a threat to the school. We're kicking you out of school." And I was like, great, glad to go. I didn't care. I remember thinking back in those days, there was a song by Paul Simon. And the lyric in the song was, "When I think back to all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all," right? That was like my theme song. So I didn't care. I was already an entrepreneur. So I wasn't concerned that I was going to not learn something in high school that was going to show me how to make a living. I'd already learned where money is. Money's out there. Go find it. I had a paper route when I was young. You're an entrepreneur. You're hustling, man, 7 days a week. Yep. I lived across the street from a golf course. And here's what I learned about golfers. They suck. Right?
They lose a lot of golf balls.
They lose a lot of golf balls, and I knew it. So I'd ride my bicycle. I'd ride the perimeter, and I'd find them. I'd bring them home. I'd clean them. I'd go back to the golf course, and in the trash cans, the boxes that the new balls came in, they threw them out. Well, I took them. And then I'd take the balls that I found, and I would categorize them like Max Fly, Titleist, Royal, Dunlap. I'd go back into the parking lot, and I'd sell them back to the golfers, right? My mom grew beautiful flowers in the backyard. She had a green thumb. She'd grow anything. She came out of the Depression. And when I say mom, I'm talking about my adoptive mom.
Your adoptive,
point, right? Yeah, just so the audience knows. And so Pat was incredible. But she knew how to do everything. Cook, clean, sew. I mean, there's nothing my mom didn't know and couldn't do. She could gut an animal and cook it. She knew how to do everything. And so she would arrange these flowers for me. She'd go cut them, and she'd cut the flowers at an angle, Scott, not at the bottom, at an angle. And what that did is it opened up the surface area so more water would get into the flower, right? Last longer. Then she would organize them. She had a beautiful eye for color. And then she put them in a bucket. And then when she put water in, she put about a half a bottle of 7-Up in it. And that, I guess the sugar would get up into the flower, and it would outlast the florist 2-3 to 1.
Wow.
So here's all these people buying flowers from me out on the street corner that outlast the florist, and they had no idea why, and I didn't tell them. So
tricks of the trade.
Right. So I'm out hustling. I'm making money. And again, my theme was, look, there's money out there. Go get it. Go find it. It's laying out there. So again, when I got to high school and they kicked me out, I didn't care. In fact, I went and got a really good job within a few hours of them kicking me out of school. And I needed a good job. I had a drug issue. And so I started working at the largest grocery store in the state of California. I was working night crew. And I got into a union, the Retail Clerks Union, which was backed by the Teamsters. And so I escalated in money and benefits, and I started doing good. I went out and bought a new Mach 1 Mustang. I moved out of my house. I had a nice apartment down in Belmont Shore, California. Great place, beautiful place. So I was doing okay, but I wasn't doing okay, if that makes sense, right? I was a mess. I was a 5-car collision, a train wreck, and a plane crash all rolled into one. So, I got married, got divorced, got married, got divorced. And my second marriage, she moved me from California to the East Coast. That happened in 83. Well, that marriage didn't last because literally she looked at me one day and she said, David, I love you, but I got to go. Your drug alcohol problem, I can't dance with that. And then I married a bartender, had 3 kids. So I'm in that marriage. And on June 8th of 1988, I woke up that morning and I said, that's it. We are done here. I am not going to live my life like this anymore. That's way too painful. And I'm talking not just physical pain, which is agonizing. It's emotional pain, spiritual pain, the disconnect of life. And so I'm living in the basement. The rest of the family's living upstairs to stay the hell away from me. And that morning I said, okay, that's it. And the only thought I had in that moment was, go load your pistol and let's get this over with. And so as I'm preparing to do that, it dawns on me, whoa, wait a minute, Dave. If you do that and you pull that trigger, you're going to kill those 3 kids at the same time. Yeah, maybe your problems are over, but theirs are just starting. Mm-hmm. And, we hear suicide all the time. What happens? When someone takes their life, we kill everybody around us, right? So that was starting to come, I was realizing that. And I'm like, you can't do that. Nope. That's not your option. You got to figure out something else to do, pal. Well, the next thing I remember, Scott, is I had a thought in my head that said, call Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, what's interesting about that is I didn't even know who AA was. I had never been to an AA meeting. I didn't know anybody in AA. Like, where's that coming from? Mm. Yet there it was. So I called AA that morning, and I got a beautiful human being on the other end of the line. And to this day, I affectionately nicknamed her Madge. And the reason I did is Madge was the gatekeeper. And Madge talked like this. How you wait? Do you want to get sober? And she had such a raspy voice, right? Because she probably smoked 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day. Well, she was a beautiful human. And again, she's the gatekeeper. She's the one, by talking to you, that would decide whether she called someone to come pick you up and take you into an AA meeting. And apparently I must have done a pretty good job because I convinced her that I needed help. I wanted help. And I was willing to do what these people told me to do. And they did. She sent Lauren to pick me up. I went to AA that first day. I went to 4 meetings. I went to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30. When I was there, they gave me one of these. And what I'm holding up for your viewers, the ones listening, I'm holding up a chip from AA. And it's a 24-hour chip. They gave you one on your first day. Then they give you one at 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 1 year of continuous sobriety. In fact, this last 2023, I picked up a chip for 35 years. Wow. Here's what happened. When I was coming into AA and getting sober, I was up late at night all the time. I had insomnia. My sleep patterns were all over the place. Well, I'm up late one night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there he is, Mr. Enthusiasm, probably the #1 infomercial salesperson of all time, Tony Robbins. There he is in 1988 selling his program through Gunther Ranker. It's called Personal Power. It's a 30-day program for total success. Now, when I'm listening to him, I'm like, I don't like this guy. He's all motivated and, encouraging. And I wasn't. I felt like crap. Mm. And I'm thinking he's pompous. This guy's a real ass, right? That's what I'm thinking. But he said 2 things, man. And he got me with the 2 things he said. The first thing he said was, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. And I went, what? I mean, that's why I was drinking and drugging. I'm either chasing pleasure or I'm trying to deal with the pain in my life. So that resonated with me, right? And then what he really got me, he said, here's how humans make decisions. We all do it pretty much the same way. And we're motivated out of inspiration or desperation. And I went, holy mackerel, I'm desperate. So maybe I should listen to this dude. So I bought his program and they sent it to me. It came in a big old box and it came on these little white things called cassette.
Oh, tapes. I remember those.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, go to the Smithsonian. They're there along with reel to reel and 8-track tapes.
8-track, yeah.
Right? Well, I plugged them in, Scott. I listened to them. I did what the man told me to do, and guess what? It worked. So it was pretty encouraging. Well, one of my buddies was in AA was kind of listening to me talking to meetings, and I was starting to talk about, you can become anything you want. I'm talking, I'm what I've learned from Tony Robbins in the meetings, right? And so we got to talking, and he said, hey, man, what's going on with you? You've got a really interesting, encouraging, mindset right now. And I go, yeah, well, I've been listening to this guy named Tony Robbins. And my buddy goes, I know Tony Robbins is. I bought his book, but I never read it. I go, well, that's interesting. How often does that show up in our lives, right?
Yeah.
In fact, my buddy Dan just passed away 2 weeks ago. And Dan's the guy, I loaned him my program. And he called me, 6 or 7 years later, right? This is all going down in 88. Well, in 1995, Dan called me on the phone and said, hey, man, did you know Tony Robbins is coming to town? And I go, no. He goes, dude, you're going with me. You got me into this. You got to go with me.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, let's go. So he goes, I'll call you back. I'll make all the arrangements. He called me back an hour later and he goes, done. We pick up the tickets at will call. Here's what they told us to do. Drink a lot of water. You have to stay hydrated throughout this 4-day event. Bring snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time in the room. What an understatement. I'm laughing. And I'll guarantee you, any of your listeners that have been to see Tony, they're laughing too, because they know what it's like. You will spend a lot of time in the room with Robbins when he takes the stage. The other thing he said was bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. I said, Dan, how much was the ticket? He said $695. I was like, what? $700? This is in 1995. Mm-hmm. Scott, right? What's that worth today? Like 1.2, 1.3 million?
Something around there somewhere, ballpark.
Right? Yeah, buy Bitcoin, I can tell you that. So anyway, just as he's getting off the phone, he goes, oh, wait, I forgot to tell you the most important part. We're going to be doing a firewalk. And immediately my mind went, hell no. I'm not saying anything, right? I don't want Dan to think I'm a coward. And you know what's interesting about that moment too is that I didn't know what a firewalk was. What does that even mean? I don't know. I have no references for it. I just know that fire and walk didn't sound like anything I wanted to do.
They shouldn't go together.
Shouldn't go together. Nope. Ain't going to happen here. And up until that point, almost every decision I ever made was based on fear. And when I say fear, I'm talking about forget everything and run, right? And so I'm like, yeah, sure, Dan. I'm lying to him, right? Yeah, sure. Firewalk sounds interesting. Hung up and I went, nope, ain't going to do it. Not going to happen. Not in my world. Well, the big day comes. We get there. Tony takes the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. The next thing we know, it's after midnight. We've been in a room with Robbins for 10 hours.
Wow.
Right? Remember, bring snacks or you'll starve to death. And the next thing we hear, Tony goes, take your shoes off. And I'm like, oh, no. I see where you're going with that, pal. I'm not falling for that. And so, because I'm not doing it, right? I've already made a decision. Well, here's the problem. I'm in a room with 3,500 people at this event, right? Guess what they're doing? They're taking their shoes off. So now my dilemma is, what am I going to do? Not take my shoes off? Walk out there with over 3,000 people, and they're going to go, hey, look at that guy. He didn't take his shoes off. He's a coward. So I'm like, okay, what are we going to do here? All right, just take your shoes off. Relax. We'll go hide in the back. Nobody's going to know. They won't. So just take your shoes off. It's no big deal. Well, it gets worse, Scott. What happens is that when Tony gets you going out there, he's got everybody chanting and clapping. So now you got 3,500 people literally going, yes, 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 as you're walking outside into this giant parking lot where you're going to do the firewalk. Well, it gets worse. When you get out there, he's got African drummers to set the ambiance. Right? So now it's yes, yes, dun, 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 dun. And you know, you've been in a room for 10 hours. He's trained you how to do this. And so I go hide in the back. I lose my buddy on purpose, and I go hide in the back. And I'm like, this is cool. Nobody's going to know. Well, here's what Tony Robbins knows. Why did he bring firewalking into his events? Because he knows, he did his research. Firewalk is one of the most life-changing experiences any human can go through, period. And he knows that. That's why he brought it into his seminars. He also knows that he wants everybody to go through it, because if you don't go through it and hide in the back, then you're not gonna get, you won't make the paradigm shift. So what's he do? He trains people to come find you. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
He's got all his bases covered.
Got all his bases covered. So I'm back there hiding out, thinking I got it all figured out. Not so much, because here comes this guy, and he makes eye contact with me. And I'm pretty sure Robbins trained him. Once you make eye contact with these people, don't take your eyes off of them. He gets 20 feet from me, man, and he's kind of looking at me really funny, like a dog that hears a funny noise, right? Twisting his head. And he says, hey, man, are you okay? And when we're not okay, what do we say? What do we do? We lie.
I'm fine, yeah.
I'm fine. Yeah, all good here, man. Nothing to see. Move along, right? And he goes, hey, good. He says, hey, man, you going to walk tonight? And I said, absolutely not. I am not doing this. And I said it with a pretty strong tonality, right? Well, he goes, hey, man, that's okay. No problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. And I went, oh, thank God, this guy's going to get me out of here. And then here's a stranger. I don't know who this guy is to this day, Scott. No clue. God, I wish I did. Because of him, one stranger, and one question that he asked me, I've been able to go out into the world and change hundreds of thousands of people's lives and affect them and influence them. Because the question he asked me was, wouldn't you at least like to watch? Thinking, yeah, sure, let's do that. Yeah, let's watch these idiots burn their feet off. He said, well, listen, man, you can't see anything from way back here. You're 100 yards away. You can't see anything. He said, just get in line, follow those people, and eventually you'll get up there to where you can see it. Now,
that's like the equivalent of telling a kid, just put your feet in the water.
Right.
And then eventually they're in there.
Yeah, just get up to your knees. Just get up to your ankles. Get up to your knees. Get up to your waist. But, in his defense, he's telling the truth. So he was congruent with his word. So I did. So I get in line and I'm walking along. Remember, I got 3,500 people in front of me. I can't see anything. I can hear it. By the way, how do you firewalk 3,500 people? Well, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you start a fire and you burn it all day. And you just keep adding cord after cords and cords of wood to it. And it's probably 35 feet wide, 70 feet long. And it burns all day. So after you burn cords and cords of wood, it renders. And at the end of the day, you've got this beautiful giant pile of blue coals. They're gorgeous. So logistically, what you do is you take a wheelbarrow over to that pit. You load coals into the wheelbarrow. You bring a wheelbarrow in between 2 lanes of sod, of grass. They call it a fire lane. 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. And they take a flathead shovel into that wheelbarrow and they sprinkle those coals on top of that grass, and that's what you walk on. Well, as I'm walking along, following these people, getting to a point where I can see it, this guy comes up to me, a stranger, and he whispers in my ear. And he says, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. And pew, this guy just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, who was that? What was that? What do you mean he knows when you're ready? What? So it was kind of mind-blowing, actually. So now I'm trudging along. Again, I've got 1,000 people in front of me. I can't see anything. I can hear it, right? They're clapping. They're chanting. The drums are going. People are screaming and yelling when they firewalk and they get to the celebration, and they're celebrating like kids at Christmas, right? They're screaming and yelling and jumping up and down. And so you're listening to all that, but you can't see it. And all of a sudden I get to a point, Scott, and I look and I can see them at an angle. Can't see in front of me, see it at an angle. And brother, they're doing it. Every race, every creed, every color, they are firewalking. And my brain's going, what? What is wrong with these people? Why are they doing this? Why would anyone do this? Metaphorically, what's happening here? And so now I'm staring at them, right? It's like, we won't stare at a car wreck, but what do when we drive by? We stare at it. And so I'm staring at these people doing this, and I'm just mesmerized, and I'm not paying attention. The next thing I know, guess where I am? Boom.
You're next.
I'm next. I'm at the front of the line, and I'm staring down at that fire lane, right? 3 feet wide, 18 feet long, got all the coals on it. They're glowing bright red. It is scary. It is so scary. And then there's a wheelbarrow there. You can feel the heat coming off. I mean, it gets real fast. So as I'm staring into the abyss, right, my heart's pounding. I feel like it's going to jump out of my chest. I'm scared to death. And there's a trainer standing there. All of a sudden, the trainer goes, eyes up. I pull my eyes up, and it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. I was in a room with Tony for, 10 hours? And what did he teach us to do? Keep our eyes up. Don't stare at what you fear. Look to the celebration end. Keep your eyes focused on that. And keep your eyes focused on the outcome. And so now my eyes are up, and he went, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, he could tell I was leaving a lot on the table. I was not in a peak state. So he screamed at me, screamed at the top of his lungs, stronger. And I threw my hands in the air, Scott. I screamed as loud as I could. And he goes, go, go, go. Right? Remember the guy come up to me? He knows when you're ready. When he says, go, you go. I went. Well, here's the first thing I learned about firewalking. When you take the first step, I'll guarantee you'll take the second.
Yeah.
Right? You are not stopping, right? Well, Tony positions 2 people at the end, and they lock arms, and they catch you. And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And I'm wiping my feet, and I'm jumping up and down, and I'm celebrating, and all of a sudden it dawns on me. I've burnt myself really bad. And all of a sudden I look at my foot, and it's dirty, but there's no burns. I just think there are, right? My mind's playing tricks on me. I look at my other foot thinking it was burnt. Nope, it's not burnt either. It's dirty. Well, I just walked across coals that were 1,000 degrees, and I didn't burn myself. And Scott, I don't have a clue how I did it. I don't know, right? I did it. I was successful. You ever done something really cool, really awesome, and you don't really know how you did it, but you take credit for it? Mm-hmm. Right? That was me. That's this guy. I walked on fire. And so in that moment, it is absolutely exhilarating. There's nothing like it on earth that I know of. The sense of accomplishment, because your self-belief, your self-confidence, and your self-worth all vibrationally get raised, right? But it's collective because you're with 3,500 people. So it is phenomenal. And I'm like, where's the bus, people? Let's go. Let's get on it. Let's go climb Everest. Because in that moment, you think you can do anything, literally. Mm-hmm. And Robbins knows that. That's why he's using the firewalk. Again, it's one of the most life-changing experiences on the planet. But here's where it gets really interesting. And that's why I'm on the Sunday morning coffee podcast with you, Scott. And that is the next day. So this event is 4 days. The firewalk's on day 1, that night. Now it's day 2. So that next morning, we're all standing in the foyer getting ready to go into the venue. And I've never seen or witnessed anything like this in my life. People humanistically were getting along so beautifully and so magically. It was so encouraging, right? Because I'm watching them. And they're talking and they're communicating at a high level. Some of them are laughing. Some of them are even crying. They're talking about the firewalk and their fears and what's fear done to them their whole life. Again, it's a beautiful thing to witness. And it's the total opposite of what happened in March of 2020, where we all got ripped apart. That next morning does the absolute polar opposite of that. It brings people together and unites them as the loving, kind, amazing human beings that we are. So that's the leverage, right? That's why Tony wants you in that state that next morning. Well, later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers, Ted Macy. What a sweet guy. Him and his wife, Mary. So I'm talking to Ted, and I said, so what's it like to be in this environment on a regular basis? And he goes, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's unbelievable. And he goes, hey man, if you'd like to be part of it, he said, you see all those people standing over there with the black shirts and the pink writing? I'm like, yeah. He goes, they're volunteers, man. They're just like you. They came to an event and wanted to come and be in it and give back. He said, so when you get home, call Robbins Research, ask them for a volunteer crew application. They'll send you one. Fill it out. Who knows? And so I did. Well, like 9 weeks after I did that, I got a letter in the mail. And it said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins companies. Well, my foot's in the door, man. And there I am. Well, when they look at your application, they look at all your qualifications. They look at your skills. They look at who you are, what you do. So I had a military background. I had a security background. So I was a shoo-in for them to put me on the security team to help take care of Tony's celebrities, which there's a lot of them at these events. I also lived on a farm. So I knew how to use tools, a log splitter, a hatchet, knew how to split wood, right? So they're like, oh my gosh, he's perfect for the fire team, which is exactly where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And so I volunteered like 5 or 6 times. And by the way, you're paying your way. So you're spending $1,500 or more to go to all these events. Well, my wife is not liking this, right? I'm spending $1,500 to go listen to some guy named Tony Robbins and volunteer, and she doesn't even know who he is. She's never been to an event, right? So, she had a point. She was right. Well, shortly after that, I got asked to become a subcontractor. They hired me to put me on the security team, and they hired me to be on the fire building team as an assistant captain. Well, they did something really smart. They gave me a free ticket. I gave it to my wife. And so she went to an event. Well, after she graduated on day 4, we're out walking on the beach, kind of anchoring in the experience. And she goes, okay, I get it. I drank the Kool-Aid. It's all good. You want to run with this guy, you run with him. As long as they're paying your way and we don't have to take money out of our pocket, go. And so I did. So that all went down in 96. Yeah, 95, 96. And then in 2003, I got offered the captain's position. What that meant was I took over all of Tony Robbins' firewalks globally. And they knew that I homeschooled my kids. So they literally offered to pay for my family to go on the road with Tony Robbins. My daughter, my son, and my wife. So imagine taking your family on the road with Tony Robbins, right? And to kind of move this forward for you, that was in 03. In 2005, we went to London and we set the world record. That's where we firewalked 12,300 people. Wow. Now, I want to disclose up front, Scott, the Guinness Book of the World Record was not there, right? So it's not recorded that it's a world record. However, it's still a world record because there's never been a firewalk anywhere in the world where there's been 12,300 people, right? Other than, the only thing that's ever come close is another Tony Robbins seminar at 10,000 or 9,000, whatever. So that went down in 05. And then in 2014, driving down the road, my phone rings, and it's a company called Google. And they want to know if I'm the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins. Well, yes, I am. What can I do for you? Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. Really? Well, homeboy's a free agent. What you got going on? So next thing I know, we ended up doing a glass walk at Google, corporate headquarters in Mountain View. The glass walk we did because they had 148 executives that were graduating. Google knows. They know what paradigm shift experiences are like. They know what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. So they wanted to take these executives who had been in this really intense curriculum for 9 months, and they wanted to create a really powerful experience to anchor in what they had done. And they wanted to do it right after lunch. And so we did. We ended up, I said, we can't do a firewalk, but we can do a glass walk because it's a safety issue. I don't do firewalks in the middle of the day. I got to be able to see those coals. They said, glass walk? ooh, tell us about that. So we did. So I ended up doing 2 gigs for Google. And that's when the light bulb went off, Scott. That's when Firewalk Productions was born, 2014. And even Google, one of the execs told me, hey, you may want to think about starting your own business. Mm-hmm. You're at the top of your game, dude. Corporate America will be all over that. They'll hire you in a minute because you can create some of the most powerful, life-changing team building experiences that's out there. Nothing comes close to these kinds of experiences. And they were right. Because right after Google, I went to NASA. Then I went to Notre Dame. Then I went to, where did we go? Like Virginia Tech, Remax, Chick-fil-A, Microsoft, Heineken, YMCA, the EO organization. Heck, the next thing I know, I'm on the Sunday Morning Coffee podcast with Scott Gardner, right? So you just don't know where all that stuff's going to take you, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, bottom line, since 2014, when we started Firewalk Productions, no pun intended, but we've been going hot and heavy ever since.
Let's go back to that first Firewalk with Tony Robbins. So you do the Firewalk, you're jumping around, you're cheering, you're excited. What's going through your mind that night when you lay your head down on your pillow to go to sleep? Your mind must just be spinning 1,000 miles a minute.
Oh, hell yes. Yeah, of course it is, right? As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and admit on the air to your audience that, hey, Dave, did you wash your feet that night? I'm like, nope, sure didn't. I wanted to look at them the next day just to prove that I did it. Mm-hmm. Because it's that unbelievable. You can't walk on coals that are 1,000 degrees and not burn yourself, can you? You sure can. Mm-hmm. And again, here's what's interesting, and you'll love this part to answer your question. Up until that point, everything in my life had been controlled by fear. And fear meant to me, forget everything and run. After the Firewalk, it shifted. It became face everything and rise. Right? Well, we like to say something in AA that I love. False images appearing real. My whole life changed right there that night at the Firewalk. And that's what happens. I've seen tens of thousands of people Firewalk. And I know what the look on their face looks like before they Firewalk. And I know what it looks like when they finish. The look of apprehension, they're scared to death. Oh my gosh, I'm going to, all this stuff going on in your head. And then all of a sudden there's this moment, this definitive moment where they step up and they go. And granted, we're getting help. They're getting help from people to get through the process, right? And then when you're on the other side, you got to see the look on their face. Matter of fact, I'll tell you what. You want to, if you any of your viewers want to see and hear what it actually happens when somebody goes through this, go Google Oprah's Firewalk. You'll see it. You'll see what she looks like before she walks, and then you'll see what happens the moment when she gets to the celebration end and she completes her Firewalk. Scott, she loses her shit. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's jumping up and down and screaming and yelling. Here's one of the most, could be recognized as one of the most successful people on the planet. And here's what's interesting. So as soon as she finishes, she walks over and the cameras go with her, right? And they interview her. And she makes one of the biggest business decisions of her life. She created what people know today as the next chapter. She says it out loud. She says it twice. She says, this is the next chapter, people. So why did she make such an important decision after the Firewalk? Because she's in a peak state. She's in one of the most incredible states of her entire life, and she knew it. And that's what happens. And that's where all decisions should come from. You should be in an incredible mindset, and you should be, your brain should be kicking on all 8 cylinders at that point.
Because if you're deciding,
when you're there and you're in a peak state like that, that's where all of your best decisions come from.
Because if you're deciding from a place of fear, then you're not going to make the right decisions. You're not going to weigh the pros and cons in a way that's going to lead to the right decision.
100%. You nailed it. Absolutely. And so Tony teaches that. This is where you make decisions from. Not down here, not below the line, above the line. Get above that line. Get yourself in a peak state. And he teaches you how to do that, right? You already did it once with the Firewalk. You have to physically get yourself prepared for that, mentally and physically. to do that. You don't want to take your ego to the fire. You don't want to go, all right, we're going to go firewalk now. Here we go, guys. I mean, no, you don't take that energy out there. Fire will teach you a lesson in a heartbeat because the fire doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right? That element doesn't care what you think or feel or what your beliefs are or any of that. You have, here's what I use. I hope you'll like this metaphor. I believe that you should treat the fire, men, from our perspective, like a woman. And when does a woman want your attention? All the time. And you should treat her with love and kindness, respect. And when she wants your attention, you better give her 100% of it. Same thing with the fire. Fire wants your attention. And it'll get your attention if you don't. Now, people ask me all the time, Dave, can you get burnt? Okay. Look, the coals are 1,000 degrees. Can you get burnt? Sure you can. Are you going to need hospitalization? No. Maybe you get a little blister on your foot. So what? Welcome to life. You're going to get a little blister on your foot when you're out here going through life, you think? You're going to get beat up pretty bad. And so, I've walked, well, I could tell you close to 500,000 people. I'm always reluctant to say that because people aren't going to believe it. Well, it's true. So when you've walked tens of thousands of people and you've seen what they go through and you see what they're like on the other side, it's one of the most magical things you can ever experience. It's a beautiful thing.
So getting to the logistics of it, so you said that you were trained on doing the firewalk. What do they tell you? Do they tell you just walk normally, not to? Because I would assume that if you're tiptoeing across, you're more likely to run into trouble, run into issues. I don't know, but that it just seems like that would be the case. Yeah, just walk normal pace.
Walk normal. Now, you want to walk with purpose, right? But you don't want to run. Don't run. Do not run because you can trip and fall. Yeah. You don't want to fall on those coals. I can tell you that. So again, I've walked tens of thousands of people. Has anyone ever been hurt? No. Have they ever been hospitalized? No. Have we ever been sued? No. Knock on wood, right? So we're either really, 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 really lucky or we know what we're doing. And you know what, Scott? I'm going to tell you straight up right now, firewalking is not that dangerous. It's just not. Again, the worst case scenario is you get a couple of little kisses on the bottom of your foot, a little blister. And typically, if you wanted to stick a little Neosporin on it, you can. We also have a process that we take somebody through if they did get a blister on their foot. And the next day, guess what? It's gone.
It sounds like it's the ultimate mind over matter thing. Well, like if you think you're going to, like you were going into it, like, no, I'm not going to do this. But then once you were there, you kind of almost in a way didn't really have a choice. You were told go and you went.
Yeah, they got me in such a high peak state that the physiology, all the chemicals are being released in your body, fight and flight. So when I went across those coals, my body knew what to do to protect itself, right? So think professional athlete, Olympian, MMA fighter, just before they get ready to go into the ring or, go into the game. Are they in an incredible peak state? Yes. Does an Olympian walk out to the Olympics just kind of, hey, yeah, how you doing? Or MMA fighter? They don't walk out there going, okay, you guys, I'm going to go kick his ass now. I mean, you know what? They're not like that, man. They're physically in it, man.
They got the music.
They got the music. Dun, 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 dun.
And the crowd's roaring. Yeah.
You got adrenaline going. You got all those chemicals being released in your body, and you are in it, man. You're in it to win it. So when you approach the fire that way, your body knows what to do. Now, that's one way to firewalk. Guess what? Here's the thing about firewalking that most people don't know. It's 1,000 years old. It's over 1,000 years old. Cultures around the world have been doing firewalking for years. It's out there. Go research it. The people, the Phoenicians, oh my gosh, they handle fire. They're incredible. The people of India, they use it for everything. They use it for marriage. They use it for the birth of a child. They use it, when you become a man or a woman. So it's very ceremonial. It's very spiritual. It's a rite of passage. Countries use rites of passage. America doesn't anymore. We need to bring it back. No doubt about it. And again, the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the Indo-Europeans. The Indo-Europeans used firewalking before their battles. The night before any battle, they would do the firewalk with all the warriors, and they had to do the firewalk before they went to battle the next day. So there's just we're pretty ignorant in the West. I mean, we just are. We don't know about things out there that different cultures and people of India and China and all over the world that they've got some really interesting rites of passage, and the samurais, and you know what I mean. So once you start to open this up, you'll find that firewalking is a profound experience.
This day and age, I know that team building, I know it always has been a big thing for companies and corporations and organizations, but it seems like, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like in the last number of years, people are looking for kind of more unique ways of team building. Do you find that has helped your business over the last number of years, that corporations are looking for these new and unique ways to bond their team together?
Well, they're tired of the old stuff. They don't want to go on scavenger hunts anymore. They don't want to go golfing, right? They don't want to do that. Why? John always wins the damn golf thing every time, right? Because he's a better golfer than everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. So they're tired of playing blackjack, and that's all fun. If you want to bring together, it's great. You can do all those things, but is it going to connect them at a level unlike anything they've ever seen or witnessed? No, it's not. And that's why, and most CEOs recognize that what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. So they have to do something that shakes up their nervous system. Now, at Firewalk Productions, I take the Firewalk to another level anyway. I brought in the board break with the Firewalk. In fact, I was on with a new client yesterday, and I won't say who they are, but I had a long conversation with their COO, and they're very successful, and they're bringing in a bunch of their best distributors. And so they're going to reward their top distributors with me. I'm the guy that gets to come in and create this unbelievable experience for them. So what are we going to do? Well, we bring them in, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get them to do the board break, right? Martial arts move. Any dojo in America does board breaking. If you want to graduate from one belt to another, they get you to break a board with your bare hands or your foot or your arm or your elbow or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's what we do. But here's how I set that up. I have them write something on front of the board they want to move towards. I have them write something on back of the board they need to move away from. And then I have them write anybody's name on the board they're in conflict with, Scott. Meaning that if forgiveness and reconciliation is part of that relationship, that ends tonight. Stop carrying around a resentment for another human being on this planet. It's only going to cloud your best thinking. And so then after that, I have them write anybody's name on their board that they've lost. Mm. So that creates the rite of passage. And so we take them out, you get them all ready. And I spend probably an hour and a half in the room with them. And then we take them outside. And then we have board break stations. And boom, now they break their board. Now, after they break the board, then they do their firewalk. Then after that, they get to throw their board into the fire. And we're getting this on video. And we're getting it with pictures of it as well. Then
they're burning away any resentment they have. They're burning away their fears, and they're moving toward what they wrote that they want to move toward.
Exactly. And so it takes two really powerful experiences and brings it into one, right? And then I do something at the fire. I do two things that's proprietary. Right when they firewalk, I have them do something that anchors it in for the rest of their life. And then anytime they want to go back to that peak state, they'll have something that allows them to be able to do that. So not only are they going to have this incredible experience, we're going to show them when they go home how to go back to that place just like that. And really, it's a snap of a finger. And then the other thing we do while they're out there is I have another proprietary experience, and I get all of their hearts to calibrate. Imagine taking 200 workers. They're all, you work together every single day. And now you've just done a board break. You've cleared out a bunch of stuff. You've set yourself up for what you want to move towards. You got rid of resentments. You brought somebody, from your family to ancestral as part of the firewalk. You did the firewalk. And now you're going to all stand there together. And I'm going to get all of your hearts to be together. I'm going to calibrate you. Oh, it's intense, my friend. It's a beautiful thing. And I just happen to be, one of the luckiest guys on the planet that I get to be able to do it. There's nothing special about me. I'm just a guy that was at the right place at the right time, if you will. And so now I'm out here. And, again, we were talking with this new client last night about it. And she actually, the COO had been in an event with me. She'd already done it. Well, when she did it, she's bringing it back to her company. She's like, oh my gosh, we've got to do this. This is going to bring us together. It's going to unite us. We've all been shredded because of the big C word, right? People are fighting over just a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
Fighting over a mask. I wear a mask. I don't. I got a vaccine. I didn't. I love Donald Trump. I hate Donald Trump. Oh, shut up already. If that's going on in your company and you don't fix that dissension, what's going to happen?
You're done.
You don't have to be a rocket science.
Yeah.
Right? Your production is going to drop. Can I fix it? You better believe I can. Absolutely.
So when you over all the years that you've been doing this, what percentage of people would you say, if you can even put a number on it, came into it with the thought process that you initially had, like, nope, no way, not doing this. This is a disaster waiting to happen. And what percentage are, open-minded and gung-ho about it?
I don't know that I can give you a percentage. I can give you basically there's three types of people when it comes to that. There's me. Nope. Ain't doing it. Period. Sorry. Not going to do it. I'm going to let fear run my life because that's what's going to happen. I tell people all the time during the seminar, I'm like, look, guys, when you get out there tonight, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But I'm going to warn you with something. If you allow fear to make that decision for you, you are screwed because fear is going to trash you. It's going to continue to take things from you. Fear is a liar, and you better come to terms with that because the fears you don't conquer, the fears you don't overcome are definitely going to become your limits. So you got that person, right? And then you got the other person going, I'm doing it, right? Dun, 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 dun. They come running out there. They're all ready to do it. And then the other set of people are like, I tell you what, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I don't know if I'm not going to do it. I'll tell you what I am going to do. I'm going to watch Scott. And if Scott does it, then maybe I'll do it. Right. So typically those are our three categories.
Which makes perfect sense because, we're in that way no matter what decision that we make. Should I start a business? Hell no, too risky. I ain't
getting married. I ain't having kids. I'm not starting a business.
Yeah.
I'm not starting a podcast. That's scary.
And then there's the people that are, yes, I'm going to do it all. I'm going to, jump right in with both feet. And then there's some, well, let's see what, going to do my research, So it's just a metaphor for pretty much every decision we make, really.
Yeah, 100% it is.
Except there's usually no fire involved.
I had a really interesting breakthrough here a few weeks ago. I was on a podcast and we finished it. And so we're just talking sidebar, right? And Natalia asked me, she said, hey, Dave, have you ever done a firewalk for veterans? And I went, you mean specifically? And she said, yeah. And I said, no, I haven't. I go, why? What do you got going on? Because, well, I have 300 vets coming to a gala. And she goes, what do you charge? And I told her, she goes, oh, man, we can't afford you. We're a nonprofit. I said, okay, well, hold on. I'm interested. I'm a vet. My dad was a vet. I grew up during Vietnam. I mean, I'm surrounded by vets. And so I said, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I can't ask I'm going to need some people to help me with this event. Got 300 people, right? I'm not going to ask them to work for free. I'm just not. I pay them X amount of dollars per day. I got to pay them for 2 days. We got to feed them. We got to house them. We got to get them there. You got all your supplies. You have hard cost here. So, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do it pro bono. I'll waive my fee. Well, she broke out into tears. So as we're starting to talk logistics and put it all together, that night when I went to bed, I woke up in the middle of the night, Scott, and here's the thought that came to me. Before I go there, let's talk about what's happening to our veterans. The number that's on the streets that are taking their own lives is 22 a day. Guess what? That's not true. It's not even close, unfortunately, because that's only if they leave a note. Well, heck, 50% of them don't. It's over 40 a day. I'll just leave it at that. And that cut me like a knife.
That's criminal.
I mean, I knew it, but I didn't know it. If that's, you know what I mean? I didn't know it until I focused on it.
Yeah.
It's like a blue Toyota. Have I ever seen a blue Toyota? Yeah, but I didn't really notice one until one of my friends bought one, and then you see them all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing here. I just didn't acknowledge it. So when I woke up in the middle of the night that night, the thought came to me: Operation Do No Harm. I can help these guys, these men and women, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. So why does a vet take their life? Well, they go into the military. They get trained to become killers. They get deployed. They go over there and they move as a unit for a long period of time. They see some horrible things happen. Some of their friends get blown away, and they're all witnessing all that, right? But while they're over there working together, there's a common purpose, right? They're keeping each other alive. There's a camaraderie. There's a connection. Unlike you can't even understand unless you're in battle. Mm-hmm. And then they come home and they get fragmented and they don't get any support. And now they're not around all their fellow comrades. Yeah. And then their purpose starts to dive. So it starts to drop. Depression starts to come in. It starts to raise. And then what do? They reach for something to deal with the depression. Mm-hmm. Could be alcohol, could be drugs. And then they start circling the drain. The next thing you know, we lose them. So my idea is to bring them in. Okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take you out here in the parking lot tonight, and we're going to put you through a rite of passage. The Indo-Europeans use this. Their warriors use this. They're warriors, right? Absolutely. So what I'm going to get them to do is take an oath. I'm going to have them raise their hand and say, promise to do no harm. Now, when a veteran raises their hand and they promise to do something, guess what?
They do it.
They do it. So that's the first step. And then we're going to do a whole bunch of really cool stuff. We're going to give them a medallion, and it's going to say Operation Do No Harm. It's going to have a creed on the back. I'm going to have them put it in their hand. I'm going to have them squeeze it until they can't squeeze it any harder for the pain. And I'm going to tell them, look, that pain you're feeling right now is just a little example of the pain that your friend or family member will go through if you take your own life. So you've got to live up to this creed that you just promised to do no harm. You also got to promise to recruit. Go find your fellow brothers and sisters and let's get them into this environment. Let's save all we can. So then again, we'll take them through the board break and we'll take them outside. We'll do the firewalk. We'll anchor it in. And so right now I've been recruiting corporate America because there's 4 categories here, not just veterans. I came up with 4 categories to help stop people from taking their own life. Number 1, veterans. Number 2, first responders. Mm-hmm. High suicide rate there as well. Single moms and kids that have been bullied. So I started planting seeds with some really cool companies out there. Black Rifle Coffee, MIT 45, the doTERRA essential oil company. They make a really cool essential oil. Interesting. All 3 of those companies are based out of Salt Lake City. One of my companies that I do a lot of work with that sponsor me and I promote them on a regular basis are these guys right here.
Oh.
Zippo. Well, you got to light the fire with something, right?
That's right.
Look at my logo. Isn't that beautiful?
That's awesome.
So they designed that for me. So when I decided I was going to start doing stuff for veterans and first responders and kids and moms, I called Zippo and I told them what's going on. I said, would you guys be interested? They said, oh, absolutely. So I went up there and spent 2.5 days at the plant up in Bradford, Pennsylvania. Oh my gosh. Zippo's been around since 1931. Mm-hmm. They started during the Great Depression. In fact, they started manufacturing their lighters in 1932. And since that date, 1932, they've manufactured, they're coming up on almost 800 million lighters, right? So they're such a great company, family owned, operated, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful organization. So I sit down with the design team. Well, in 1941, they made a lighter for our GIs that got deployed to Europe to fight the Nazis, and the Marines and Navy that got deployed to Pearl Harbor and fight the Japanese. And I know that the GIs got those lighters in 1941 because my dad had one. He carried it with him, and he had it with him until the day he died. And so what we're going to do, we're going to take that 1941 replica, and we're going to powder coat it black, and then they're going to laser into it. They're going to be so beautiful. And they're going to laser into it, Operation Do No Harm.
Oh, that's amazing.
So now every vet that comes, that walks, they're going to get a lighter. They're going to get, their medallion. The other thing we're going to give them is one of these. And what that is it says, I firewalked in 2022 or 2023. Mm-hmm. Here it'll say, Operation Do No Harm, Firewalk 2024, whatever it's going to be. So these are the calls from a firewalk.
Oh, wow.
So they'll have these. And they'll be able to set it on their desk or set it on their credenza or whatever. So we're going to do a whole bunch of things. They're going to get one of these necklaces. It's got the burning feet on it. And then we're going to create a community where they can come in. So I'm in the process right now, Scott, creating, I need to create a 501c3, a foundation, so a nonprofit. So companies they can come in and hire Firewalk Productions if they want to, but they can also come in and make a donation to Operation Do No Harm and bring a firewalk to their city. Well, when I started talking about this, I was on another podcast. Who's a vet? Ed Paraguay. And Ed is the president of the Rotary Club in Modesto, California. Well, he got a hold of me. He goes, Dave, I want to hire you. I want to bring you to Modesto. I want you to do a firewalk here for our veterans here. So we've already got 200. That one's coming up on April 13th, 2024. So right now, if you don't mind me promoting that a little bit,
Go for it.
I'm looking for every single corporation, company, investor, entrepreneur that wants to get involved. And you got 4 categories. Who do you want to help? You want to help vets? I got you back. You want to help first responders? We got you. You want to help single moms? We got that too. And then again, of course, if you want to help kids that have been bullied, we'll do the same thing. Now, people go, what do you mean kids? Well, how old? Well, but let me put it this way. My daughter was 6 years old when she did her first firewalk with myself and Tony Robbins. My son was 9. I've walked, a couple of thousand kids, anywhere from ages, 6 years old up. Mm-hmm. And the beauty about kids is they don't have the limiting beliefs that adults do.
Yeah.
They come in there and boom, 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 across they go. Imagine taking a kid that's been beat up, maybe sexually abused. Mm-hmm. Then you bring him to me, bring him to us, to my team, and we board break them. We get them to write stuff on the board. They break that board with their bare hands. There's a reason martial arts studios do that with kids. That board break is a self-worth. I mean, they do it. Self-belief, self-confidence, self-worth. That's why they do it. We're doing it too. It's just that after that, they get to go firewalk, and then they get to throw the board in the fire, and then they have pictures and video for the rest of their life. And they get the container of coals and a medallion. So the bottom line is, if most companies have to donate money away every year for taxes anyway, we'd love to have that support. So Absolutely. If you're a company out there and you want to put your brand out in front of something that is super, super powerful and it'll make you look really, really good, we just might be a good choice for you.
Well, that sounds like a great place to finish off. Give you an opportunity to share with everybody where we can find you, website, social media, anything that you want to put out there so that people can find you.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that, Scott. It means a lot. We're in the process right now of creating Operation Do No Harm. That's, again, we have to create the nonprofit. So we don't have anything up on my website yet. We will. It's coming soon. But for now, if you just want to get a hold of me and you want to talk, then just go to firewalkadventures.com. So it's Firewalk, second word, adventures with an S, firewalkadventures.com. Also, another thing that's there is the Dave Albin Firewalk Academy. Once a year, I run an academy. That way, if a company wants to send somebody to our training, or if you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, or you're a trainer or a coach or whatever, you can come to my academy and I train you for 5 intense days. It's a 5-day intensive. We're going to teach you a lot. We do it up here in the Appalachian Mountains, up here just about 25 minutes west of Boone, North Carolina, where App State University is. And we do it up here in the mountains. We just graduated 11 people here in October. And the next one that's coming up is in October of 2024. So that's on the website there. And then, of course, all our other information about all our other corporate team building experiences.
Well, that's fantastic. It's such a unique program, such a unique thing to do, and such a unique way to heal yourself. It's incredible. Yeah. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today. And I'm going to check out your website and see what it's all about. And I wish you all the best with everything. Your program for vets and kids and single mothers, and it's just fantastic. So thank you for talking with me today.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Scott, for putting it out there. I've got a sneaky suspicion there's somebody out there listening, maybe a few of them who'd like to get involved. So we look forward to hearing from them.
All right, Dave Albin, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Scott. Have a great